Daylene used 240 for just 1 month and was able to crush not 1, not 2, but 3 whole exams. Hey, I'm Emma. I have a lot of experience teaching in the early childhood classroom, and now I work with 240 to help teachers pass their certification exams. And today, I'm going to help you. This video is going to prepare you for the Praxis Early Childhood Education exam, which is the 5025. This exam contains 120 selected response questions, which is a fancy way of saying multiple choice. And today we're going to cover 3 things: what's on the test and how to study for it, the most likely concepts that will be on the test, and we're going to look at a few practice questions. Ready to rock? Good, because I'm ready to roll. Now, the Praxis 5025 exam consists of 5 content categories: language and literacy, mathematics, social studies, science, and health and physical education, creative and performing arts. Each category is worth a certain percentage of the entire exam, with language and math being worth the most. Let's jump right into the biggest with category 1. Don't you just love checking to-dos off your list? We'll keep track as we go to give you that satisfying feeling of accomplishment. The language and literacy category covers a lot. You'll need to know about emergent literacy, foundational reading skills, literature and informational text, writing, speaking and listening, and language. Oh man, that is a lot. No wonder this category is worth the largest percentage of your exam. Let me give you a more detailed preview of what to expect. You'll see questions about phonological awareness, measures of reading fluency, and how to help students improve. You'll also be asked about sight words versus decodable words, and the types of spelling patterns used to categorize them. You'll also need to know about graphic organizers and how they're used to help students' reading comprehension. And don't forget about stages of the writing process, just to name a few key concepts. Don't worry, we have all of this and everything you need to prepare for your exam covered in our 240 study guide. But for now, let's pick another key concept that is essential to know for this category of your exam and really dig into it. You'll need to understand the sequence in which students develop their spelling skills. That might sound like it's part of writing, but this particular topic falls under the emergent literacy umbrella. Here are the stages you'll need to know. In the pre-communicative spelling stage, also referred to as the pre-phonemic stage, a child uses letters from the alphabet to represent words without demonstrating knowledge of letter-sound correspondence. The words appear as random strings of letters. In the semi-phonetic stage, some knowledge of letter-sound correspondence is apparent in a child's attempt to spell. It's common to see single letters used to represent whole words, syllables, or sounds in which multiple letters are conventionally used. As a child progresses to the phonetic spelling stage, they use a letter or group of letters to represent every sound heard in a word. Spelling choices still may not be conventional, but they're easily understood through the lens of letter-sound correspondence. The 4th stage is the transitional spelling stage, in which a child moves from depending solely on knowledge of letter-sound correspondence to incorporating knowledge of word structure and common visual representations of words in their spelling as well. More conventional spelling is present in the child's writing, but misspellings are still common and frequent. Last is the conventional spelling stage, when a student can apply knowledge of letter-sound relationships, general spelling rules, and morphology in their spelling. The child is better able to recognize misspellings, and the spelling in their writing is generally correct. Now, it's almost time to move on, but I've got one more tip for you. You might see a question about teaching students to count syllables. Want to know a trick I used to use? Have them put their hand under their chin, say a word, and count how many times their jaw drops. Okay, watch. How many syllables are in the word pass? Pass. 1 jaw drop, 1 syllable. How many syllables are in the word certification? Certification. 5 syllables. As in, you will pass your certification exam. Try this trick right now. You'll look silly, but I promise it works. Okay, now we've got the foundation. Let's see what students are ready to learn next. All right, now that we've checked language and literacy off our to-do list, we're ready to see what the mathematics category is all about. You'll need to know all about foundational math skills, numbers and operations, working with both whole numbers and fractions, algebraic thinking, geometry, measurement, and data. So you'll need to recognize patterns and identify types of sequences like arithmetic and geometric. Know about place value and the order of operations, or PEMDAS. And you'll need to be able to convert between decimals, fractions, and percents. Plus, recognize and create equivalent fractions. You'll need to be able to both use and identify the different operational properties. You'll also need to be able to classify shapes and solve problems involving their area and perimeter. And finally, you need to be able to work with data. So that means organizing the data given to you in a graph or plot, or looking at a graph or plot and interpreting the data found there. The data I'm seeing here is that you might be feeling overwhelmed by all this math. So let's do what we did with language and literacy and pick out one specific area to walk through together. We'll tackle that last one, organizing data. You might be given a data set and asked which graph or plot would best be used to represent the data. Here's a list of common graphs and plots, along with the type of data they best represent. If you're working with categorical data, choose a bar graph or pie chart. If you're working with quantitative data, you've got some more options. Line graphs track changes over time. Dot plots and stem and leaf plots are best with small data sets. And box plots and histograms are better with large data sets. Need a little help understanding each of these graphs and plots and how to build them? Don't worry, we've got you. The 240 Study Guide has in-depth study material on everything we're mentioning today and so much more. That was a lot of information, but see, we made it. That's another check mark for us. I sure feel productive. How about you? Let's move on to social studies now. Now, you might be thinking you'll need to dust off an old history textbook to prepare for this category, but you can go ahead and keep it on the shelf. The social studies category covers broad concepts like identity, social development, emotional development, culture, cultural identity, people, places, environments, time, continuity, change, civics, and government. Plus, we have everything you need covered in our study guide anyway. No supplemental resources required. Let's zoom in on a key concept from this category that's essential to know: human-environment interaction. Human-environment interaction looks at the ways in which people and places interact with and influence each other. It asks the questions: how does the environment affect the development and choices of human societies? How do societal choices impact the shape and functioning of their surrounding environment? These systems are very complex as they each have numerous attributes. Both humans and the environment are considered adaptive because they have structures that allow for survival in our ever-changing world. Geographers are constantly studying these interactions in order to have a better understanding of how humans and the environment affect each other. Ready to see a general overview of how people have modified the environment to develop civilizations throughout history? Why am I even asking? I can tell you were born ready. Beginning civilizations first secure a water source, then build homes and crop storage. Then it's necessary for them to track weather, days, and seasons. Then roads are built and trading starts. And cities and harbors are developed. Simple, right? We know it's a bit more complicated than that, but the main takeaway here is that people have always adapted to and modified their environment for survival and progression. Okay, moving on. Check, check, check. Let's talk about science now. In this section, you're going to need the fundamental concepts of science: inquiry, physical science, earth science, space science, life science, engineering, technology, and how science can be applied to the real world, both inside and out of the classroom. Ready for a quick rundown of everything science? Let's get to checking things off that list. So you'll need to know about the unifying process of science, or the things that'll pop up no matter what kind of science you're studying, like cycles, systems, and cause and effect. The other big part here is the scientific method. Know the steps in order and the skills required for each one. And I'm actually going to skip a few on this list and jump down to these ones, but don't worry, I won't forget about the ones I skipped. These last three kind of group together and focus on real-life problem solving. And here's a little side hustle tip. It can even help you develop the next big thing and become a millionaire entrepreneur. Just don't forget about me when you're rich and famous, all right? I'm a size free trip to Fiji. Anyway, you'll need to be able to identify a flaw in how something works and provide a solution to make it better. Or come up with a solution to a problem. A big thing here is to compare multiple solutions to a problem and apply the best one. And no matter what, know how to support the scientific and engineering process with technology. Okay, let's hop back up and cover what we skipped. But here's where it gets a little tricky. Each of these next areas are broad. You can get several different degrees in each one of them. So we'll pick out some of the most important stuff. In physical science, you'll need to know about matter, specifically the states of matter and the qualities of each. You'll also need to know about the different types of energy and how energy can be converted from one type to another. For Earth and space science, you'll need to know about the movement of Earth and the Moon and how these movements impact life on Earth. And for life science, you'll need to understand the basic characteristics of life, what organisms need to survive, life cycles, and relationships between organisms and the other living and non-living things within their ecosystem. Like I said, this was just the tip of the iceberg. To find out everything you need to know for this part and the rest of your exam, subscribe to 240 Tutoring. For now, let's take a closer look at something that trips up a lot of people, the lunar cycle.
There are 4 main phases, each about a week apart. New moon, which looks pretty much plain black. First quarter. Full moon, which looks fully lit. And third quarter. You can memorize the main phases of the lunar cycle with these key points on the circle. A full moon occurs when the moon is behind the Earth in relation to its position to the sun. A new moon occurs when the moon is in front of the Earth in relation to its position to the sun. The quarters will occur halfway between a new and full moon. Test creators often test on the moon phases. It's a good idea to get to the point where you can sketch the cycle from memory on scratch paper to have when answering a question. There are also 4 transitionary phases that occur between these points. 2 when the moon is waxing, which means the light we see is growing, and 2 when waning, which means it is shrinking. Some people remember this with wax on, wane off. The entire cycle takes about 28 days to complete.
Like what you saw? There are tons more videos where that came from in our study guide. Checkmark 4, achieved. Okay guys, we've almost made it through our whole list. Let's finish it out and talk about health and physical education and creative and performing arts. Ooh, this one sounds fun. For the health and physical education portion, you need to know about promoting a healthy lifestyle, diseases and prevention, human body systems, community health, nutrition, motor learning, fitness, and benefits of physical activity. For the creative and performing arts component, expect to see questions about the terminology, principles, materials, and processes utilized in visual art, music, dance, and theater. In this video, I'm going to focus on a couple of topics from the health and PE portion and go into detail about those. But don't worry, you're not on your own in the creative and performing arts portion. The 240 study guide has all the information you need about all those topics I mentioned, so you can be prepared to give a 5-star performance on your exam. So first, you're bound to see a question about human body systems. Here are all the systems you'll need to be familiar with. Together, they provide the basic functions of life. I'm going to describe 3 of them in detail now. The integumentary system protects the internal parts of the body from foreign matter, regulates body temperature, and gets rid of some wastes such as water and salt through perspiration. An example of this is our skin. The skeletal system protects the organs, gives the body structure and support, works with the muscular system for movement, and stores essential minerals like calcium. Think of any bone in your body for an example component of this system. The muscular system moves body parts working with the skeletal system, for example, a leg. It also moves materials like food through the intestines or blood through the heart. An example of this is when you flex your bicep muscle to show off. It's a common misconception that the systems work alone. In fact, the systems can help each other or work together to accomplish tasks. For example, the bones of the skeletal system develop red blood cells for the circulatory system. Remember, there are a lot more systems you'll need to know, but there's no need for system overload. Just check out the 240 study guide. We've got all the info you need right there. Another topic that's likely to come up is a healthy diet. And it's not as simple as telling students an apple a day keeps the doctor away. Students need to understand that dietary choices, including nutritionally balanced meals and healthy eating habits, contribute to long-term health. The US FDA's current dietary guidelines use the MyPlate image to show the relative portion sizes of each type of food for a balanced meal. Also, be prepared to identify the 6 different types of nutrients: carbohydrates, fats, proteins, vitamins, minerals, and water. Here's an important takeaway. A balanced diet maximizes nutrients and limits sugars, saturated and trans fats, and sodium. And that's it. You made it through all 5 categories. Way to go. Let's do some questions. 5 syllables. Now that we've gone over some of the big concepts in our 5 categories, let's look at some practice multiple choice questions to show you how those concepts can appear on the test. Now, on to questions. Remember back in category 1, I told you about the stages of spelling development? Let's look at how that can be reflected in a question. In which of the following stages of spelling development does the child start to leave behind their phonetic dependence and rely on visual and morphemic strategies? Pre-communicative, semi-phonetic, transitional, or conventional? Students stop depending on sounding it out or phonetic dependence in the transitional phase. It's then that they start relying on other visual and morphemic strategies. Let's look at one more from Category 1. This one's about phonological awareness. A pre-K teacher has children participate in the following activities: clapping syllables in students' names, counting syllables in days of the week, and standing if their names contain a specific number of syllables. These types of activities help students to develop phonological awareness by focusing on repeated, specific letter sounds in names, develop phonological awareness by using meaningful words, develop letter-sound correspondence by breaking words into phonemes, develop phoneme-grapheme relationships by pointing out how names are made of letters and sounds. Okay, those last two activities all involve hearing sounds, no written letters, so these two are out. They definitely promote phonological awareness, but is the focus on repeated letter sounds or meaningful words? The question feedback we give in our study guide could tell me that this activity doesn't focus on teaching specific letter sounds repeatedly. Some names may start with the same letters, but the goal of using student names is to create significance for learning by using a word of importance for the child. So this is the correct answer. Using words that are significant to children, such as names, creates meaning and interest in the lesson. Now let's look at a question under Category 2, Mathematics. Which of the following is an example of the commutative property of multiplication? Well, right away we can cross out choices C and D because those two are not showing any property of equality. The commutative property of multiplication states that it does not matter the order of the multiplication sequence, the answer will be the same. And choice A is the only option that includes multiplication, so A is the best answer. Now let's take a look at a social studies question. This one has to do with humans and the environment. Which of the following is an environmental condition that allowed ancient Egypt to become a successful civilization? Choice C is the one we want. Ancient Egypt adapted to their environment by becoming one of the earliest agricultural societies. The predictability of the annual flooding of the Nile provided rich soil and bountiful crops year after year without the devastating, unexpected flooding that occurred in surrounding civilizations. Time for science. Which of the following characteristics always describes a solid? Well, I know of lots of solids that aren't clear, so choice D is out. But solids are rigid, and they have a definite shape and a fixed volume. So A, B, and C are all correct. Now for the fifth and final category. Here's a question about body systems. Which of the following systems in humans is the primary barrier for foreign particles? Respiratory, digestive, reproductive, or integumentary? The correct answer is integumentary because it includes the body's skin, which forms a barrier between the human and its environment. Congratulations on finishing the video. If you found it helpful, give it a like. There's still plenty more to learn. Did you know that thousands of teachers have passed their certification tests using our study guides? If you really want to make sure you're prepared for the Praxis 5025 exam, take the next step and subscribe to the 240 study guide. It has hours of videos, so you can watch and/or listen while doing chores. It's test aligned, so you know precisely what you need to study. And it has hundreds of practice questions, so you can be sure you're ready. And it has the money-back guarantee. So click the link below right now to get started.